Yo, what's going on guys, HyperX here, welcome back to another video for Elden Ring, and in this one I want to give you a guide on how to get the Dark Moon Greatsword or the Moonlight Greatsword if you guys have played previous From Software titles. In this game it's called the Dark Moon Greatsword. It is incredibly awesome, has the unique skill Moonlight Greatsword, where you raise the sword aloft, bathing it in the light of the dark moon, temporarily increasing magic attack power and imbuing the blade with frost, and then when you perform charge attacks, it releases blasts of moonlight. It's incredibly cool, but it also requires the completion of a rather long and rather difficult quest chain. So I'm going to try and make this video as concise as possible while still giving you all the necessary details. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated, but let's not waste any time. It is also worth mentioning that you will need to defeat a few story bosses in order to complete this, so by the nature of that it will be somewhat spoiler related. However, I will not give you any of the story spoilers in this, but you will see locations that you might not have visited yet, so if you don't want to see that, step away, come back later. Anyway, if you want to do this, first things first, this begins when you speak to Ranni, who you'll speak to at the very beginning of the game. She's the person that gave you the spirit bell so you can summon your spirits. She typically turns up once you have got your mount and you then go back to the church at night, and she will then spawn there and you can speak to her. Once you've done that, you will of course then need to make your way up to Leonia. You will need to have defeated the second boss, Ranni. I will not show you the boss, but you will need to have defeated her, who is of course over in Raya Lucaria Grand Library. And then following that, you'll then need to go to the western part of Limgrave and work your way up this side sort of track here. And then once you've got there, got to the very top, this is Carrier Manor. You will need to complete the manor and defeat the boss at the end of that as well, because once you've done that, it gives you access to the back of the manor, which is where you will find Ranni's Rise, and of course that is where you can then initiate the next part of the quest, or technically the beginning of the quest. There are 3 towers out in the back here. Ranni's one is the one in the middle. Of course, once you get closer to them, they will be labelled. But what you want to do is go all the way over to Ranni's tower, climb to the very top of it, and speak to her. You can accept the dialogue options. Of course, I said no particular reason. And then following on from there, you'll then want to pick the option Serve Ranni the Witch. And after that, what you then need to do is turn around and go back down the tower. When you go down the tower and you go down the lift, you will then find 3 spirits, all of whom you need to speak to, basically people that work with or serve Ranni. The first one is the smith over here, whom you would have met on the way up to the manor. He is also the guy that sells you somber smithing stones. Following on from there, you turn left and you go down and speak to Blade, who is the guy in the wolf armor set. And then finally, you then go to the next room and you then go and speak to Celavis, and then he is the last one you need to speak to. Once you've done that, you then go back up the tower and you speak to Ranni again. And then your quest has now begun. Now from there, what we're going to be doing is going down to Limgrave. We're going to be going over to the east part of Limgrave, down to the Siofra River Well. If you haven't been there yet, one of the easiest places to go from is the Third Church of Marika, and you can run south, or of course you can go north from Fort Height. Either way, you basically want to go over there to the well, and then once you get there, you go down the awesome, long, epic lift, and you then come to the Siofra River. Once we're here, you then need to follow the path that you see me taking right now, because our intention here is to go and meet with Blade, seeing his actual physical form, because of course the people we interacted with just now were the spirits. We are now trying to find his physical form because he's gone to investigate some stuff. Again, story reasons, you can find that out for yourself. Basically, you want to run and follow the path you see me over here, sticking largely speaking to the right. Depending on the level that you are, then there are some things that hit pretty hard, although if you are going to go through this quest chain, you're going to need to be pretty decently leveled for some of the stuff that is to come. Anyway, find him over there, speak to him, have a full conversation, try not to get shot in the back with arrows, but once you've done that, you're then on to the next stage. We are now going back up to Leonia, and this time we're going back to the location before, but not quite to Ranni's Rise. We're instead going to go to Celavis's Rise. So you can teleport to the nearest location, and then you want to walk over to that tower, which was previously inaccessible, but then you want to speak to him a couple of times, because the first time he will of course give you something and sort of send you off on your way, but when you speak to him a second time, you want to say ask about Nokron. Once you've done that, he will then give you another item, which is Celavis's introduction, and that is an item that you need. Now, following on from this, we're then going to be going over to Caelid. You can go to the nearest fast travel point, which for me is the Cathedral of Dragon Communion, but we're going to be making our way down to the bridge, the sort of bottom right-hand island. And in order to get there, you have to go past the impassable bridge, and in order to do that, you simply need to interact with this portal, and it will teleport you inside. Fortunately, once you get here, there is absolutely no combat, at least not until you get to the end of it. First things first, you can of course go and grab the Site of Grace on the right if you want an easy fast travel point, but then afterwards you simply need to run into the courtyard, have a conversation with Blade first, so speak to him, and once you've done that, you then want to go through the castle gate, up the stairs, turn around and speak to this chap over here. He will then say, are you ready to begin the festival? You want to say that you are ready as ever, assuming of course that you want to begin. A cutscene will play. Again, I will let you guys experience the cutscene for yourself, but this is going to lead to the next battle against a boss, a rune boss, so one that of course is integral central to the story. Once you've done that, you then turn around and you then go into the castle behind you. You run through the first door, run through the second door, take a right out of that door, and there is a lift. You take this lift down, and then at the bottom of the river, there is another portal, and once you take this will take you into the boss arena, and you will have a very tough boss fight ahead. Again, I will say nothing more about the boss fight because you can experience that for yourself. Let's just say it took me a while to take him down. But anyway, once that is done, a cutscene will play. I'm only showing this part because it is relevant to the next part, but basically you see a comet flying down, which is going to lead us to our next location. After this, you run up to the site of Grace, you speak to Blade, and you're then on to the next stage. What we're now going to be doing is going back to Limgrave, and this time we're going to be going over to Fort Height. If you use the fast travel point, or the site of Grace, should I say, you will now see, if you look into the sky, a crashed meteor, or sort of some floating parts of said meteor. That is now where we're going to be going. So you basically want to hug the side of the cliff face, follow the path that you see me taking right now. We're basically going to be running all the way down to get to this new location. I'm going to let the route run down first. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, but I'm not going to speed it up too much so that it is relatively easy to follow. Obviously, if you do need to follow it at a better pace, you can adjust the speed of this video, but simply follow where I'm going and eventually you will come out the front, which will be Nokron, the Eternal City. This place looks absolutely incredible. The fact that it is hidden underneath the map is wild, but what you then want to do is, again, follow the directions that I'm going, doing a little bit of parkour. You can dodge pretty much all the enemies down here. We're basically going to be running all the way across to get to another site of Grace. Now from this one, we are then going to be running straight out, and you want to go through the door in the sort of back right corner of this courtyard. We're then going to be running down this sort of alleyway, and you're then going to take a right, and you will see there is another boss doorway for you. This boss is fortunately not as tricky as the one you have just fought. This is actually pretty straightforward. Again, you can experience it for yourself, but go in here, defeat this boss, and once you've done that, you can then proceed. From the left of the site of Grace, we're then going to be running up the stairs. At this point, you can jump onto your horse, so you can actually make things a little bit speedier. You basically want to run all the way down underneath the first archway and then take a left where the wall breaks. And you then again want to follow my route down here. I'm sticking to the left sort of side so you can dodge a lot of the enemies. If you go all the way around and hug the left cliff, you can then again find another site of Grace. You have a nice fast travel point again, should you die, because there is a lot of jumping around here. So if you do happen to fall off the ledge, then you're going to be quite happy to have this. Following on from that, we're then going to be dropping down even further, and again, follow the route that I take here. I'm going to let you guys watch this out again because there's not really much more that I need to describe. Simply follow this, and you'll get to another side of Grace. From this location, we are nearly at the end of this section. We're going to be running straight forward past all these slimes, up the stairs again, and inside here is a chest. This is the whole reason we've come down here, the Finger Slayer Blade. This is a necessary item. This is basically what Ranni wants. So now that you have this item, you can then teleport back to Ranni's Rise, go to the very top, speak to her, and give her this item. Speak to her the first time, she will of course thank you for it. Speak to her the second time, and she will then entrust you with the Carrion Inverted Statue. Now, following on from this, what you now need to do is go to Renna's Rise, which is the third tower in this little sort of courtyard in the back, the one we have yet to visit. So you now need to go there, that's over on the left-hand side. Again, don't forget you can use your horse when you're in this sort of backyard, so it makes traversal a lot easier. Go into Renna's Rise, climb to the very top, and there will be a portal which you can interact with, and then upon taking that, it will take you to the Ainsel River main. Now, from here, what you need to do is walk forward, and in this coffin, there is a shiny collectible. You must pick this up. This is a miniature Ranni. At this point, what you need to do is walk forwards, and there will be a site of Grace. If you sit down, you'll have a new option here, which is to talk to the miniature Ranni. Now, the first 2 times you try and do that, you'll simply get a couple of dots. Do it a 3rd time, and she will then finally start speaking to you. This is necessary in order to continue the quest, so make sure you do this. She will then tell you that you need to eliminate the baleful shadows. So, following on from here, we then need to continue forwards. Again, follow the route that I'm taking. If you want to sort of stick to the left-hand side, you can avoid being pelted by this large creature. And what you then need to do is basically run through here, and we are going to go for quite a long journey and basically follow the river all the way down. It's a pretty straight route, so again, I will let the route play out. But once you've done the first part, that will bring you into Nokstella, the Eternal City. Once we have arrived here, drop down and grab the first Sight of Grace, so you have a point that you can easily return to. And then following there, we then need to again run forwards, and we're basically making our way all the way down a pretty straight line towards another sort of church or a sort of church style building. You walk inside and there will be a lift for you to take. Once we get down the lift, there is another Sight of Grace for us to take, and we then need to run forwards, make sure you dodge the enemies down here, because they have a rather nasty move that, nobody likes Death Rot, basically. But once you get inside, you will then see the Baleful Shadow, and this is the enemy that you must defeat. Take him down, Ranni will then speak to you, thank you for your service, and you will then get the discarded Palace Key. This is an important item, however, before we use this, instead, run forwards, go into the next doorway, take the lift down, and grab the Sight of Grace as a fast travel point, because we will be returning here very shortly. Also, if you run down to the riverside here, you can also grab the map of this area, which is quite handy. Now, following this, we then want to return to the Raya Lucaria Grand Library, the academy, where of course you would go to respec. You guys might remember, after you defeated this boss, there was a chest there that was locked. This is the key for said chest. Once you get that and pick it up, that is the Dark Moon Ring. Also, very important. Now with this done, we can then return to the Sight of Grace we just picked up. We can then go down to the Lake of Rot, and we need to basically run in this direction. You can use some items to try and lessen the rot buildup, but basically it's a bit peak. You just need to run across the lake and brute force it and heal. That's how I've done it. I have a lot of health, I have a lot of potions, but basically you want to get to the other side. There will fortunately be another Sight of Grace once you get there, which you can use to cure your rot. Now that we're here, we are almost at the end, or at least the end of this section. There's a couple more things to do, but we do have another boss battle to get through. You want to follow the route that I'm taking right now. We're basically running all the way down and taking a left at the end, and there will be a coffin for you to interact with. Once you do that, you'll jump in, and that'll take you to the next area. Now, we're almost done. Once you're in this area, once you've dropped down with the coffin, you will then need to run towards the boss fog. There is another boss in here which you need to defeat. Again, I will leave it out for spoiler reasons. It's pretty tough. I wouldn't say as tough as the previous one, but it was still pretty annoying. Anyway, take it out, defeat it, grab the Sight of Grace, and then run up the passageway that is behind the Sight of Grace. There will be an elevator for you to take up, and once we get to the top, this will be the Moonlight Altar. Again, there is another Sight of Grace out there. Now we're basically going to be running up the hill towards this derelict looking church. And we're going to be going inside. You want to dodge the dragon that spawns, the Glintstone Dragon Ardula. Basically go up to the top. There is another Sight of Grace. And following this, there is then a hole in the ground for you to drop down. Make sure you look down carefully because, of course, if you don't necessarily get the platforms, you might break your legs and die. But when you drop into the bottom, you will then see Ranni there. You can interact with her. Again, there will be a cutscene, and after that, you will then see her in her other form. You speak to her, and finally, when she disappears, you will then see an item for you to collect, and this is the Dark Moon Greatsword, a legendary armament, hence the sort of a golden background to it. It does have a pretty high requirement of 38 intellect in order to use this, but it is definitely well worth it because it is badass. Also, if you happen to be a trophy hunter, you're going to need this for the legendary armament achievements. Anyway, that's it. That's your guide on how to get the Dark Moon Greatsword or the Moonlight Greatsword. Trying to make it as concise as possible while still giving you everything that you need. Hopefully you found this helpful. Any questions, always let me know in the comments down below. If you guys want to find out where you can get a load of materials to upgrade your weapons so you can be even more powerful, definitely check out this video and keep it locked for plenty more Elden Ring.